Welcome to the WorkPro webinar. Today is an inside look at the WorkPro and Bullhorn integration. On the webinar today, you've got myself. I'm Tony Heafy, Key Account Manager here at WorkPro. I look after all WorkPro's enterprise customer relationships. A lot of this includes Bullhorn integrations as well. Joining us on the call today is James Francis, who is Compliance and Governance Lead at Talent Quarter. James has been in this space as a compliance professional for a number of years now, working in the staff and recruitment industry at Talent Quarter now for over 3 years, and Talent Quarter have been a key client of WorkPro's now for about 18 months. What we'll go through today, just a little overview of the integration and some of the capabilities. I'll take you through the integration myself, show you how it works. We're going to speak to James about the Talent Quarter experience, about how they found their onboarding and how the integration streamlined their business processes, and then we'll run through how to set up the integration yourself. In Bullhorn, WorkPro exists on the candidate record as a tab here. The workflow that the consultant follows is they come into the candidate record, they click on the WorkPro tab. If there's no profile populated like it shows here, then what they do is they come in here and they search for the candidate's email address. Search WorkPro. Bullhorn gives up a recommendation, which is here. I'm going to link that, and I'm going to link the profile. Cool. This is a synced candidate record between Bullhorn and WorkPro. So here the WorkPro tab is in full swing. You've got a summary of all the services used. We'll break that down to each section. So we have the background checks. WorkPro offers background checks, everything from a right to work in Australia check, right the way through to an anti-money laundering check, and everything in between. So that'll include reference checks, police checks, employment medical checks as well, and a raft of further background checks when you're looking to employ a candidate. Our work rights check is directly integrated to the Department of Home Affairs database, and our Australian police checks are directly integrated into the ACIC database as well. The second service line is the e-learning component. So WorkPro has a predefined library of 45 modules that are industry and job specific. Again, everything from sexual harassment, bullying, discrimination, right the way through to cybersecurity. And in between there, we've got stuff like retail worker, manufacturing, trades and labour. So it's quite a breadth of availability there. And then the last service line is license, ticket and documents. Again, another predefined library where you can capture licenses that are required for compliance purposes when onboarding new staff, and documents where you are able to create custom documents for any data that you need to capture that may sit outside the license ticket library. So that's how the WorkPro iframe works on the candidate record. With the enterprise integration, what WorkPro also does as well is they push data into the certifications or credentials tab in your Bullhorn instance. This data stays natively in your Bullhorn instance. So what happens is every time that a candidate completes a requested task from WorkPro, WorkPro will update the tab like you saw previously, but will also populate a credential here on the credentials page. So you can see here, we list the name, we list the requirement type. If there is an expiration date associated with that check, we'll populate that as well, and we'll give you the status of the check as well. These statuses will dynamically update as the check's moving through each process, be it the candidate or be it submission to an agency to complete. We'll also provide further data on each check as well. So we click on the little binoculars menu here and get a bit more granular on the data. And what WorkPro will also do is they'll pop in a URL to the evidence of the check as well. So this is a Australian work rights check. So this is the evidence provided. If it's a police check, you'll see the police check certification. If it's a reference check, you'll see a completed reference check as well, and so on and so forth. So that'll always be here for you, so you can cite the evidence for each credential. The next thing that the enterprise integration does, because the data is pushed naturally, is it allows you to use WorkPro credentials when searching for candidates. So we call it talent pooling. So what you can do is you can build searches in your Bullhorn instance for roles that you place on a regular basis. And in those searches, you can now add WorkPro credential requirements. So in here, we've got a common role and I need everyone to have a work rights check and completed a module. I add those into my search requirements and I press search. There are my two candidates here. So WorkPro, as well as pushing the data to the credentials tabs, that's natively in your instance. You can also use the WorkPro criteria to now search in the advanced credential search. The third thing the Bullhorn Enterprise integration does is now that Bullhorn have released Credentials V2, is it allows you to use the credentials in the job or company workflow. So what you do now is when you add a client or you add a job to Bullhorn, you can add requirements to these jobs. You may need everyone to have completed a work rights check or a police check. So you add the requirements of the job. When you push your candidates into that job workflow, whether it be at a shortlisting phase or a placement phase, whichever one you choose, Bullhorn will ask you to provide evidence that each candidate at that stage has met the requirements set against that job. You provide evidence of meeting those requirements in the form of a credential. And WorkPro, because it maps all the stuff to credentials, allows you to do that with all your compliance as well. So that's really a quick snapshot of how the integration works. We're now going to go over to James, so we can hear James's story on a bit more about excuse me, a bit more about Talent Quarter and what they've done.
Thanks, Tony, and thanks for inviting me on today. So as Tony mentioned, I'm the compliance and governance lead here at Talent Quarter. I've been a WorkPro user since I believe March of last year and a Bullhorn user for close to 4 years now. Now, the Talent Quarter brand launched last year following the acquisition of Sugarman Australia. And today we're both a registered NDIS company under the TQ Care brand. And we also look after the national recruitment market across multiple industries ranging from disability and aged care, child and youth services, nursing, as well as the allied health sector. And now they're all very compliance heavy fields. We also have a very large on-hired workforce, so it was vital that we implemented a compliance system that could streamline that screening and onboarding process, but also manage that ongoing compliance requirement across multiple sectors and really leverage our existing candidates in our Bullhorn system. And we've got a simple purpose. We want to connect the best healthcare talent as well as social care talent with the best opportunities. So WorkPro has really enabled us to do that.
Awesome. And how was the WorkPro implementation? What was that like for you guys?
Yeah, so the implementation itself was quite seamless. I would say that the planning and training stages were pretty comprehensive, but not onerous on the team. And one thing that I did really like was the resources and guides that are made available to both the admin users and the candidates, as well as the phone contact resource as well. I think, you're one of the only partners we have that you don't have to wait over a day to actually talk to someone or get a result over the phone. But in terms of the uptake and the speed of getting our candidates to register and complete the required modules, it really did come down to how engaged our workforce was and the expectations that we set for them and how it's communicated to them. But I think specifically for the WorkPro Bullhorn implementation, it was important for us to have that candidate data mapped back into Bullhorn, as we do use those fields for other automations, such as our rostering software. We actually pull the certification, licensing, and work rights back into our rostering scheduler. So it was important that we have that sitting there natively and dynamically as well to populate back to that rostering software.
Awesome. And James, can I get three key things that the WorkPro Bullhorn integration, how it's improved process or improved your life?
Sure. So I think with Bullhorn being our single source of truth, and with my compliance hat on, I think the biggest improvement has been our data control and data integrity. Having that data, as I said, being dynamically stored in the database, it really adds value in two regards. One of them you've gone through, so the filtering and searching capabilities that Bullhorn brings. And this really is a benefit for our consultants who are dealing in very compliance-heavy industries. And I guess the second would be reliability. So that internal verification certificate that you brought up earlier for our candidates, and that assurance that data is correct, and it creates that immediate audit trail. And I said those fields are not only pushed into Bullhorn, but they're also pushed to our other integrations and other automations. So there really is no room for error. I think the final thing I would say is that the integration itself, it just works. The data is really what you make it. And no matter what your Bullhorn environment looks like, you can really make use of those fields and add value to your searching. The system itself, very user-friendly, and from an admin perspective, it really does enable that credentialing piece to go to that next level and really make use of the existing candidates in your database.
Cool, awesome. James, thanks for that. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. So moving on from here is setting up your integration. This is a really simple process as well. You need to raise a ticket with the Bullhorn support desk, let them know you're getting the WorkPro enterprise integration. In turn, they will supply you with a set of credentials, which you then supply to WorkPro. We can then go and establish your connection and configure the integration for you. Then what you get when you log back into your WorkPro instance, like previously shown, there'll be the WorkPro tab, and you'll be having all that data pushed through to your credentials tab, and you'll be good to go. And then lastly, just any questions or any queries, please. That's the phone number there for WorkPro, 1300 975 776. My email address is theheafy@workpro.com.au. So apart from that, I want to say thanks everyone for hanging out today. Thanks to Talent Quarter for jumping on and sharing their experience. Thanks for people listening. And if you are looking at getting a Bullhorn integration or doing any Bullhorn work, also like to bring up RecMate as well, who are integration management specialists who work with a lot of our Bullhorn customers on implementing their Bullhorn and getting the right plugins integrations, and just so their candidate journey, their candidate experience flows really well, and it's obviously time efficient from an internal and consultant perspective. They also work with the Talent Quarter guys when setting up their Bullhorn instance initially. Apart from that, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for jumping on. Have a great day. Cheers.